Put your kid into sports like ASAP. And this is my personal predictor of future success for young kids, is to put them in sports. And the earlier you do it, the better off he or she will be. The earlier you do it, the earlier he or she will learn how to compete, how to train, how to overcome their own limitations, how to overcome defeat, how to handle success and not let it go to their head, how to work with their teammates, how to work with their coaches, how to work as a unit, how to lead a unit, how to use their instincts, how to use their God-given talents to succeed out there, how to communicate with others. Okay, these are all just critical, essential skills that they will need to hone and master as an adult, right? And there's no better way to get ahead of the pack out there, their peers, before they reach adulthood than to give them a head start on life and put them into sports, okay? You want to give them a head start in life because, again, they're going to be competing not only with the adults that are already out there, but most of all, the kids that are their age, all right? The kids that are part of their generation. So you want to put them in sports as soon as possible so that they learn how to compete. Because guess what? In case you've been living under a rock, life is competitive, right? Life is competitive. And the sooner you could put your kid in sports and teach him how to compete, the better off he'll be. Okay, you want to give him the opportunity to master these skills early before everyone else in their class does. And I don't care whether you put your kid in football, baseball, basketball, tennis, karate, or soccer. You want to find out which sport or which sports that he's most talented at, which sports he can excel at, and immediately sign him up for that sport. Now, personally, when I was in high school, I played football, and I also did varsity track and field. I did karate at night. I competed in several karate tournaments growing up, several times per year. And this was back when they didn't separate the kids from the adults, you know, because like in today's karate classes, they're definitely separating, like, you know, the kid classes from the adult classes, where back when I was growing up, they didn't do that. I mean, I was very much in with the adults. I remember one karate tournament that I was in, I was literally 14 years old and I was fighting a 37-year-old man. Okay, and they would just not allow that to happen these days. All right, I think they have like under 18 now, where back when I was competing, they didn't do that. I mean, I was like 14 and here's this 37-year-old guy and, you know, I had to fight him. But that was a good experience in itself. And so now when I see karate, kids karate classes these days, I'm almost kind of saddened by it, because I'm like, you know, these kids are, you know, by the time you hit 13, 14, you're big enough, you've got enough bodily function to compete against kids who are older, if not grown men. And sometimes it is good to compete against grown men because it does give you that confidence, and it does give you that belief in yourself, like, wow, I can fight a guy who's my dad's age and I can probably beat him up, you know? So it was a great experience. But what being involved in all these different sports did for me was give me a competitive edge in life. Okay, it gave me a competitive edge in life. It helped me to discover my competitive edge, and it helped me to expand my talents, things that I was already talented at. It also helped me to discover my weaknesses, things that I just wasn't good at, and actually I spent a long time trying to fix those weaknesses that I had, until one day I finally realized that there's no way I'm gonna fix all these weaknesses, and even if I did, I would just become mediocre or average at best at the weaknesses I was trying to fix. So why not put all of my energy and my focus instead on my talents and things that I was already good at versus my weaknesses, things that I was never going to be more than average at. Instead, put them towards my talents, things that I was already good at, that I could expand upon, and that would allow me to really go out there and really give myself a fighting chance to compete against the best in the world, no matter what I was doing, okay? And I apply that to my dating business, because I have one of the top 25 dating channels in the world right now, and I specifically recently moved to Los Angeles to compete against the best dating and pickup guys in the world. You know, these guys are doing millions of dollars a year in revenue. They've got hundreds of thousands of students all across, all throughout the world, and I came here to compete against them. And the reason I did that is because I have that belief in myself. Okay, I have that belief in myself. And you know where it came from? It came from playing sports. It came from, you know, my years growing up playing football. I played basketball for a while, track and field, karate. It came from that competitive drive that I learned growing up as a child, because my parents put me in sports. Actually, I wanted to be in sports. By the time I got in high school, thing was, the most popular guys that were getting the hottest girls were generally playing sports. So I specifically chose sports that I felt that I was the best at, that I had a passion for. One of them was football, and I ended up playing football not only in high school, but I also played in college, played a little bit of semi-pro as well, just because I continue to have that passion for it, and I just love to compete. And nowadays, I've transferred that competitive edge into my business. Okay, so you always want to transfer that competitive edge into somewhere. Otherwise, it will eat away at you. If you ever see like these former professional athletes, once they retire, they don't know what to do with that competitive edge, and they kind of start to self-destruct, you know, where the smarter ones, they find something else they have a passion for outside of sports, and they're able to compete again, but in something else. Okay, and for me, when my football career was over, and you know, I was no longer doing martial arts, I was like, well, I want to compete in something. It has to be something. And obviously, for me, it led to my career led me to entrepreneurship, so I started competing there. But even when I was competing for jobs in corporate America, and I mean, I really did not have all of the qualifications to get the jobs that I did and to get to earn the income that I did. But I knew that I could produce results. I knew that I could get out there and compete. And then I ended up getting a job for a Fortune 100 company. I was able to cross six figures for the first time. Nobody had done that in my family, because I come from a very middle-class background, very middle-class neighborhood. I was the first one in my family to buy a Mercedes. You know, I was just living life and living it to the max. As I always tell you guys, you know, you're only going to be here once, so sometimes you got to do stuff like that. So I bought myself a brand new top-down Mercedes, and I was just kicking ass at this job. I was making six figures. I was living very comfortably, and really that income allowed me to kind of, I was able to live off my savings long enough to build the business that I have now. You know, I mean, there was a time, obviously, I went like almost went completely broke after all this, and while I was building my business, because I was still trying to figure out how to make it work and how to make it successful so I could make a living from it. But what really pushed me during those dark days, and what really pushed me to keep going and not just go back to another corporate job, was the fact that I believed in myself and I knew I could do it. And I'm a competitor. And again, that competitive edge came from my childhood. It came from playing sports growing up. And this is why it is so critical to put your kid in sports as a child. Okay, it's so critical. But again, that's what putting your kids in sports will do for them. It will teach them to compete. It will teach them to grow. It will teach them to challenge themselves, to overcome their weaknesses, handle defeat, handle victory. Just all of those priceless life lessons that will carry on into their adulthood. And believe it or not, even all the way until it's finally their time to go and leave this world. All right, and like I said, the sooner you put your kid in sports, the better off they will be. And if you look around out there, most of the kids, and most of the adults for that matter, who are constantly, you know, playing the victim role, like, oh, poor me, I can't get ahead because, you know, these people are oppressing me, or this group is oppressing me, or poor me, the world's so unfair, I'll never get ahead. All of those people out there that are playing the victim card and playing the little victim mentality, I guarantee 99% of those adults have never ever competed in their lives. They've never played competitive sports growing up. They just never learned those basic skills of competition. They've never ever played a competitive sport in their life as a team, as a unit. You know, they might have played like for fun, like with their friends, but they never played on an actual team growing up, whether it's in high school or Pee-wee or, you know, little Pop Warner football or anything like that. Guarantee they did not do it, because if they did, they would have learned at an early age how to compete in life. Okay, how to compete to get what they want in life, instead of bitching about what they want in life and expecting, you know, someone else to give it to them. And generally they expect the government to give it to them, right? These guys, their answer to everything is like, oh, let the government, you know, I want the government to solve everything. You know, that's just not the government's role. So when you have kids, and of course, you know, as a part of life, you know, we all succeed and we all fail. Sometimes we fail more than we succeed. And actually that's the case for a lot of things. We fail more than we succeed. But then when we do succeed, they're generally big successes that cover all of the losses of the failure, right? But you will never get to those big successes unless you learn how to fail and learn how to just dust yourself off and get right back up and get out there and compete again, okay? And just keep getting back up and getting out there and keep competing, okay? And so when your kids fail and when they don't succeed, the last thing that you want them to do is sit in a corner like a 5-year-old bitching about how they didn't get what they want, you know, and bitching about equality and how we should all be equal, because that's for little bitches who never learned how to compete. And a lot of those kids, by the way, you know, the equality crowd, a lot of those kids grew up, you know, from my experience, they grew up in very wealthy neighborhoods. You know, they grew up with very rich parents where they really didn't have to do jack. They didn't have to compete for anything. And they pretty much got everything handed to them on a silver platter. And now that they're adults, they just want everything to continue to be handed to them without them having to go out there and compete, okay? Without them having to go out there and challenge themselves and take on competition and see what they're made of. Because for them, they grew up in this rosy world where everything was given to them. So now that they're adults, they just want like full-on equality. Everyone's equal. There's no competition. This is generally why they hate capitalism, because capitalism is all about, guess what? Competition. It's all about competing. It's all about beating out your competition. It's all about coming up with the best product and bringing the most value to the market. I mean, imagine if there was no competition out there. If there was no capitalism, we wouldn't even have cell phones right now. I mean, we would literally have pagers, and we would be lucky if we had pagers right now. You know, if there was no capitalism, we probably wouldn't even have that. We would still be talking to each other on the actual home phones that we used to have when I was growing up, where you would just kind of like dial. You know, there would be no such thing as cell phones. There would probably be no internet. There would be no innovation. There would be no technology, because there would be no incentive to compete. You know, and really what drives the market is competition, is that incentive to not only profit, but to be the best out there, to dominate the market. And as humans, we're just naturally competitive, and that's just the way it is. And like I said, the sooner you can put your kid in sports, the sooner he will learn how to compete. So if you want to give your kid the best shot at becoming successful in life, there is no better way than to put him into competitive sports as a child, period, okay? That has been my personal predictor of success for kids I grew up with who became successful. Now, does this mean that if you put your kid in sports, he's automatically gonna be successful? Of course not. Of course he has to apply himself, he has to enjoy that sport, and he has to learn how to enjoy the art of competing if he's not already competitive, because some of us are not naturally competitive while some of us are. Okay, so if he's not naturally competitive, he's got to find aspects of competition that he enjoys, that he will grow a passion for as he gets older, as he grows into adulthood, so that by the time he is an adult, he can get out there and compete. All right, because if you just throw your kid in sports and you just leave him at, say the soccer field all day long, and you pick him up after work and you never really help him, you never really, help him to get better, and he's just kind of like sitting on the sidelines each game, he's probably going to learn to hate competition, right? So by the time he's an adult, he won't even want to compete because his experience from competition will have been bad. So as a parent, you have to be involved with your kid, and hands off to those dads that I see at the at the park, in the field, where I see them playing catch with their son. I see them like teaching their son how to hit a baseball. I see them teaching their son how to throw a football. I saw a father with his son who was probably about 11 or 12 at the park the other day. His son just signed up for like pee-wee football, and he was running sprints with his son. And the dad was probably about 50 years old, but he was still out there running sprints with him. He was pushing him. I could tell it was just a really great bonding moment between father and son to see. And we need more of that. Okay, and that's another thing that putting your kid in sports will do, is it will kind of keep them away from the bad crowd, and it will keep them involved with kids that are also competitive in nature, and that also they don't want to spend their time like out on the streets or playing video games all day. They want to be out there using their God-given talents to really discover themselves. That's a great thing too, is your kid will meet other kids who are doing positive things with themselves, and also the great thing about sports, especially when you start playing high school sports, is you start getting into lifting weights, you start getting into a lot more fitness, health and fitness. You start eating better, you start getting a better diet, you start developing, again, all of those life skills that are going to be critical as an adult. And I know so many kids that I went to high school with that never played sports growing up, meaning not only did they not play sports, but they, of course, because they didn't play sports, they never worked out. They were never in the gym. And now I see these guys, and I mean, it's like their health and their bodies are kind of like a train wreck. A lot of them are either really obese, and if some of them are still thin, they're like really just flabby, and it's like you can tell they've never been to a gym in their lives. And again, this just goes back to not putting your kid in sports. There are so many benefits to putting your kids in sports that, I mean, it's impossible to go through them all in one coaching video. But the key is, if you want to see your son become successful in life, and you want to see him get out there and compete one day and become a productive member of society and kick ass out there and crush it, the sooner you put him in sports, the better. And again, you want to kind of identify the sports that you feel he would be most talented at. And because one thing about me is like my dad was a great basketball player, okay, and he tried to teach me basketball at a young age, and I'm just not that great at basketball. I'm decent, don't get me wrong, like if you're decent too, I could probably beat you, but I did not feel comfortable enough where I could play like where I'd feel comfortable playing for my varsity basketball team back then. I knew that I could contribute way more playing football, and also I had a love for running and track and field, so obviously I geared towards that, and I did varsity track and field for all throughout my years in high school. And again, football, karate, I just really just gravitated towards the sports that I enjoyed and that I felt that I could be the best at and that I enjoyed training for, especially with karate. There was a lot of training involved. Even in business right now, even as an entrepreneur competing against the best dating companies in the world, I really draw upon all of those competitive lessons I learned as a child growing up. I mean, that's really what drives me now as an adult. And I'm so grateful and thankful that I had those experiences growing up, because a lot of kids don't, and a lot of kids pass them up. They don't realize how critical it's going to be to their adulthood. But again, it's the responsibility of your parents as well, because if my parents didn't encourage me, like, hey, you should probably sign up for one of these sports, if they didn't encourage me, I don't know if I would have done it. So your parents, I mean, as a parent, you have to encourage your kid to do it, and you have to get involved with your kid, and you have to find out what he's good at, and you have to be like, son, or if you have a daughter, you be like, daughter, try this sport. I want to see how you like it. Or just, say it's soccer, grab a soccer ball and go out to the field with them and see how good they are. See if you see any potential there. And if you don't, go back to the sporting goods store and buy a football, and then go back out to the park, try the football out. See how they are with the football. If that doesn't work, go back to the sporting goods store, get a mitt and a baseball and a bat, and get back out to the park and see if they're good with that. All right, but the key is you want to find out the sport that they're most talented at, where they could be the most competitive. Okay, because again, part of competition is you want to build your confidence. So you want to You want to find out where they could be most competitive, where they could build the most confidence, which sport that'll be, and then put them in it, all right? Put them in that sport. Like I said, this is my personal predictor of success from what I've seen, as long as you do it right. Now, I know they have this other predictor of success that I remember growing up. They did a test with like kindergarteners. They gave them the option to where they could have like one cookie now, like they had like cookies, right? And they said, okay, class, you could have one cookie right now, but if you wait until the end of the day, you can have 2 cookies. And they basically said the students who took the one cookie now were generally less successful in life because they couldn't delay gratification. They kind of didn't have the self-discipline to wait until later when they could have got 2 cookies. Where they found that the kids who waited till the end of the day and got their 2 cookies, they found that those kids went on to become more successful in life because they were able to delay gratification. And in a way, this also goes back to being in sports, because sports really teaches you to delay gratification, because you can't, just run off with your friends after school. You have to go to practice, right? You can't just run off to your girlfriend's house in high school because you got to go to the gym, lift weights. And that's what I remember is like, in high school, my girlfriend back then, I wanted to spend all my time with her, because like when you're a kid, this is like one of your first real girlfriends, all you want to do is spend your time with her. And I remember distinctly going, I don't want to go to the gym, I just want to be with her. I don't want to go to practice, I just want to be with her. But it was having her at the time, and then sports, and then of course my parents watching over me, just developing that mental discipline to delay gratification and be like, hey, this has to get done first. Okay, you gotta go to football practice, you gotta lift weights after, and then you can see your girlfriend for a few hours, but then you gotta come home, sleep, and do it all over again, right? So it's developing that self-discipline that sports gives you that is just absolutely priceless for your adulthood when you finally become an adult. So I'm gonna wrap things up here. If you have kids right now, put them in sports ASAP, and if you don't have kids right now and you're planning on having kids in the future, remember what I said. You've got to put them in sports at some time during their childhood. And like I said, the earlier the better off they will be. All right? So until next time, this is M from Alpha Male Secrets, and I will see you in my next coaching lesson.